I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Thanks for joining us. Dumb, dumber, dumbest. That is the focus of tonight's angle. All right, sadly, stupidity has become the fastest growing industry in America today. And nowhere is this more evident than in the academic world. Now, consider the latest embarrassing revelation from the land of higher education. At Vanderbilt, one of the hottest universities in the country, two associate deans at the Peabody School's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion were caught doing something that would get most students tossed out. After the tragic killings at Michigan State University, Nicole Joseph and Hasina Mohouden felt the need to send out a campus-wide email to reflect on the shooting. One problem. They used the artificial intelligence app ChatGPT to write it for them. Well, no big surprise, right, that the bot used the typical liberal DEI blather and redundant expressions. This was part of it. The recent Michigan shootings are a tragic reminder of the importance of taking care of each other, particularly in the context of creating inclusive environments. Now, these women were so sloppy and so lazy that they didn't notice the small print at the end of the actual letter, which read, paraphrase from OpenAI's ChatGPT AI language model, personal communication, February 15th, 2023. Oh, whoops. The school has since apologized. Dumb and dumber. Well, they obviously didn't read the piece recently published in The Atlantic by Ian Bogost titled, ChatGPT is dumber than you think. Well, in a moment, we're going to explain how it's not just dumber than you think, but more biased than you think as well. But in a statement, Vanderbilt's dean of the education school, Kamala Benbow, said her office is, quote, conducting a complete review of the sequence of events that led to sending the email, and noted that the two deanlets will, quote, step back from their responsibilities. Step back? One dean said that although she stood by the bot's sentiment, urging that inclusiveness, well, she did admit to plagiarizing and apologized. Okay. How does either of them still have a job at the university? Let's not forget, by the way, a little over 10 years ago, Vanderbilt kicked all the Christian groups off campus unless non-Christians were allowed to lead the group. This is the kind of brilliance at Vanderbilt these days. The diversity, equity, and inclusion traps are everywhere. On CNN today, a reporter and anchor were implicitly calling for quotas in the field of medicine.
Right now, fewer than 6% of doctors in the U.S. identify as Black or African American.
More needs to be done to make sure that our physician workforce here in the U.S. reflects the diversity seen among patients. Patients are more likely to follow a physician's medical advice if they do have a feeling of being heard and understood. So all this plays a role in really improving public health.
They showed a chart with all the 0.2% Native American doctors. You get the point. But question, does anyone out there think any politicians on Capitol Hill or any Fortune 500 CEOs that they choose doctors when they're in a real emergency situation based on diversity considerations, like for heart surgery, let's say? Or do they choose their doctors based on reputation and merit? Now, this equity and diversity nonsense, it's not making us better, it's not making us smarter, it's not making us stronger or more united as a nation. It's making us dumber, weaker, and more divided. The result, kids can't read or do math. Teachers are afraid to establish objective standards. They don't want to offend any parents. And administrators, like those at Vanderbilt, those women can't be bothered to compose or proofread their own emails. Now remember, those two deanlets represent Vanderbilt's Peabody School of Education. In other words, training the next generation of thinkers. Talk about terrifying. There are some signs, though, that this system is beginning to break down. Notice that some of the first positions being cut by businesses right now during this economic slowdown are the diversity departments and consultants. Well, plainly put, there's no value there. Teaching young people resentment and rage, it's a dead end no matter how you look at it. If they fall into the mindset that everything is rigged, that America is systemically racist, in other words, Joe Biden's view, it's only going to ensure failure and despair and hatred of one's own country. The deans at Vanderbilt came out of the DEI mindset, and they were trained in racial and ethnic glibness, where results don't matter, only the process matters. And this thinking, we know, has come to dominate the entire Democratic Party. It's dominated the Biden White House and Democrat-run states. And look what's happening to them. Are they flourishing? Now, if we succumb to the DEI mindset, it's not just New York and California that are going to be left behind, but all of America. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.